The idea of operatism that Plato developed in the ancient Greek society was another type of idea or a new type of idea that Plato developed. In fact, if we have to consider who defend the territories during the ancient Greek society, we know that only the aristocrats could defend the territory. In this sense, in fact, Plato, on the contrary, tried to develop a new type of idea in relation with the defense of a territory. In this sense, according to Plato, you have to defend the territories only if you have a specific type of attitudes in relation with this type of defense. This is really important because according to Plato there is the myth in the sense of a free part of the souls. Therefore, according to Plato, each one of everyone has a specific type of soul with that it is divided between three parts, but in any case there is in this sense in everyone a specific type of one of this part that is most important than the others, therefore is more present than the others. And in this sense, for example, according to Plato, if you have much more the soul that is in relation with the attitude of the courage or the attitude of the defense of a territory, you have to make the soldier. This is really important because according to Plato, therefore, the different type of hierarchies in the societies, but also the different type of division of labor in the societies depended in first type between the idea of attitudes that, according to Plato, is derived from the metaphysical point of view. In fact, according to Plato, and Plato in this sense anticipated the idea of genetic, but idea also of the cognitive exercise of point of view, in this sense, the mental cognitive. It is important that it is important to explain that each individual has different type of attitudes, and therefore we are different in this sense, or better, there are also individuals more intelligent than others. Therefore, on the one hand, in each work, on the one hand, the idea of philosophers, on the other hand, the idea of warriors, on the other hand, also the idea of workers, there is a hierarchy that is in this sense explained as, for example, that people that are more intelligent than the other, that people that explain more than the other some attitudes, that people that work better than the other in that specific type of work, that people that are more competent than the other. In this sense, according to Plato, there is a specific type of hierarchy, and this is the hierarchy based on the hierarchy of competence. On the other hand, in any case, according to Plato, before the hierarchy of competence, we have to divide people into the different type of labors, and we understand this if we consider the different type of souls in relation with the souls, therefore in relation with your genetic, that in any case has to be considered in relation with your attitude and your skills, but in relation in particular with your work, you have to follow a specific type of way. Therefore, Plato anticipated the idea of creativity in this sense, because on the one hand, Plato understood that in this sense we are on the one hand in a part our genetic, on the other hand we are in another part our work, and these two parts defined what we can do, and a specific type of difference between the others as individuals. According to Plato, therefore, the science is, in this sense, as derived from metaphysics. This is really important because Aquinas will develop this type of idea in relation with the main God as the Christian God. This is really important because if we consider this, we have to consider that Plato, to criticize the ancient Greek society, divided the soul in three parts, but in particular took the argument of the hierarchy and took the argument of the competence in relation with metaphysics. In relation, therefore, to explain the importance of attitudes and to explain that each individual is different in relation with attitudes. On the other hand, with the rational theology, to understand that we are a part of a physical world, and there is, in any case, a demiurge or a god that explains and builds a specific type of structure that is in relation with some objective that have a specific type of comprehension as us, for us. This is really important. And Aquinas, therefore, try to understand this passing for Aristotle because Plato anticipated the idea of rational theology and the different type of intelligence and the different type of idea of cognitive sensitives, cognitive intelligent that people have in relation also with the capacity to understand the rational theology. In fact, if we take for example the work of Aquinas, for example his writes, his works, his writings, his ideas on theology, we understand that according to Aquinas, God produced and creates different type of things that are different from themselves. But this type of differences are only the consequence of the main simple thing that is God. In this sense, if the main simple thing is God, and God produced differences, it is important to explain that the genetic, according to Aquinas, or the different type of intelligence are not in contradiction with God, but are the part of God in relation with the rational theology to understand what is God. And on the other hand, if God produced something, therefore that something has to be different by God. This is another type of argument that Aquinas used, took the argument of Aristotle of the syllogism of the logic and metaphysics, that Aristotle took that argument that Plato developed in relation with the idea of warriors, the idea of philosophers, and the idea of hoplitism, because Plato thought about the hoplitism in relation with the impact of a metaphysical point of view on the physics. Therefore, our attitudes in relation with our genetic, in relation with our possibilities in this world, in relation with our works that it develops during our social life. This is really important. In fact, Plato supported the social life. The idea to stay with others, the idea to stay into the city-state, into the polis, is for us a potential idea to complete what we are as attitudes. I, you, we can understand ourselves and we complete us with staying into the society, into better in the community, because with these changes, with the possibility to understand the others, we can understand us, and with the work between us, we understand our attitudes to understand better who we are and to work for this. Therefore, for example, according to Plato, I can understand better my attitudes if I work with you, because probably with this working I understand who I am, and therefore I can understand better my attitudes to follow these attitudes. And therefore there is the economical miracle, or the economic wealth, because the economic wealth is the sum of the skills of a people that in relation with them produce something of new and collaborate with them. And Plato understood this, also if the idea of genetic, for example, it wasn't theorized in the period of Plato, but Plato understood that we are different in relation with our intelligence and we have an impact in the society. And Plato theorized this, began from the metaphysical ideas. This is the main issue that explains that the idea of God and the idea of a Christian God supported by Aquinas is not in contradiction with the idea of God. Sorry, I have repeated this thing in a sentence. The idea of God is not in contradiction with the genetic. The idea of God is not in contradiction with the creativity. The idea of creativity and the idea of different type of genetics, therefore the different type of our intelligence, the potential QI, for example, that a man can have, or the different type of skills that a man can have, are not in contradiction with God. And this type of issue was understood on the one hand already by Plato, on the other hand already by Aquinas. In fact, in the work of Aquinas explained this. Aquinas wrote about this. Properly explained about this. And this is really important because from this type of argument that was born in the ancient Greek society with Plato, we understand also how they were developed, how were developed the theories on natural theology, and on the other hand also idea of potential knowledge that man can have during the Middle Ages, for example, with Aquinas. Bye.